Last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Stephanie Jones, who's going to speak a little bit generally about the work that she and her team are doing across several of our investees.
Thank you. I think I am actually the one standing in the way of the food. So I'm going to go really fast because you've heard everything I'm going to say in those great presentations. So I am really going to go quickly. You know that we're working with all of these wonderful places with the support of the Tauck Family Foundation, for which we are incredibly grateful. We're doing, I think, 5 big categories of work, and you've heard actually about each one already. We're doing school-wide teacher training and ongoing support. I'm going to give you an example of each of these. We're reviewing SEL lessons, as you heard about, for the Pumpup plans at AFBA, and we're kind of looking inside existing practices and curricula and making explicit the kinds of activities that are already happening in places. We are facilitating monthly PLCs at NBFA, and we're working on performance management, I should say. I'll say it that way. We're getting to the point where we can use data or support the use of data to drive instruction around SEL. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And then I would say in each case we are exploring family workshops based on some work that we did with 2 other wonderful people here today, who you'll hear more from in our panel in a little bit. So our school-wide teacher training, for example, covers these kinds of topics. And building from what Ronell said earlier, we really think about the kind of core underlying science of SEL, which is about how the brain moves between executive function and self-regulation. And that's kind of the underlying core of SEL that we talk about in our trainings. So we talk about that. We talk about the brain science behind it. We talk about why SEL is important for kids and how it actually develops over time. So what are the skills that are really important for a kindergartner, and how are those different, or how do those lay the foundation for the skills that are really important in 3rd grade, right? So we think about a developmental progression. We talk a lot about strategies. So you've heard in each case about different kinds of strategies that have come up in those settings and that have been used in those settings. That's slightly different from a kind of comprehensive program like Ruler. And they're both really, really important. It's important to have strategies if you're not ready to do a comprehensive curriculum. And it's important, if you're ready, to have something that's more comprehensive. So we, in this case, really think about strategies. And then, of course, always we're very focused on adult skills. So adults are the pathway to kids. Okay, you heard about the Pumpup plan, so I'm not going to talk about this really at all, but this is about reviewing lessons that are being created at AFBA. We're not creating the lessons, so these are lessons that are really closely tied to the culture and context of that place. We are providing feedback and ideas about strategies that can be embedded in those lessons and then used at other times in the environment. We're documenting SEL in practice. So for example, at Horizons, you've just heard about this terrific new curriculum where SEL is really woven in and embedded in. We're working with them to make very explicit to the staff, to all the parties at Horizons, like, what exactly are you already doing? Like, what do you see in your practice that is really closely tied to SEL, and how can you build on it? We're working at NBFA doing monthly PLCs with grade level groups, and these are, again, really grounded in the interests and needs of the place. And so we use a kind of common planning tool that's about identifying a particular issue to work on, to problem solve and identify supports that already exist, to think about what to do next, and then make a plan to do it. And you can use this kind of tool to generate a plan and then come back and say, okay, what happened? Did it work? Did it not work? What do I have to do differently? And I'm going to make another plan for the next time. Okay, so getting to performance management, as you heard from Raluca, Horizons has been collecting a great deal of data over time and has a number of potentially linked data files on kids over time that we are beginning to analyze. And then we've just started using and at Horizons, they've been using this child trends tool, and we've just begun supporting the other 2 sites to use the same tool. And in each case, they have collected data. Using this tool, you can't read the items, but there are 12 of them, and they are solid. They focus on persistence, self-control, and social competence. And at NBFA, we collected data for about 300 kids, at AFBA for about 130 kids across grades. And it's great. The great thing is that these little tiny scales made up of very few items appear to be reliable, internally consistent. Check. They look like they're normally distributed within the population and within grade. I'm looking at you, David. Check. These are all good things. They're related to each other in ways that you would hope. Check. These are like, this is a tiny little tool. This is impressive for such a little thing. And they progress developmentally. So, you know, the kindergartners look like they're not as great at self-control as the 5th graders do. Also a great thing. So this tool seems like it's working in the way it was designed to work. What we'd like to do is get it working as a checklist. So you can do it in shorter time spans. So did you observe this behavior in the last 3 weeks? And if so, how many times? So then you can say, okay, in the last 3 weeks I saw this, this, and this, and I'm going to do this thing to respond, and then I'm going to do the checklist again and see if I observe it again. And we can use those same items to do that. Lots of highlights. The other presentations highlighted these highlights. I don't need to highlight them myself, although they are highlights, truly. And then we're thinking about how do you go beyond? Like, how do you sustain the practice? How do you sustain the work in a place over time? And some of that is about strategies, right? Some of that is about the chili hug, and some of it's about the brain games, which are all super cool and fun to do, I have to say. But really what sustains the work in a place is having a framework for doing the work that then carries across time and lives in the culture of the place. And so we've been building a kind of framework for doing that. So social emotional learning is organized, so what you do to support it is organized around this pyramid. Building high quality relationships, having routines and daily structures that are focused on it, and doing direct activities and lessons that support it, and then having some targeted support for kids who really need help, or adults. And each of those boxes includes a set of sort of planning and problem-solving questions around each of those components of that pyramid. That's the way to sustain the work going forward, because the stuff, the strategies, will change. But if you use a tool like this, you're always thinking about what strategy can I use for this kind of problem that's arising. So that's what we're doing looking forward. And that's, whoops, and now the break. Thank you, everybody.